Welcome back. The Kansas City Royals entered the 2016 season as champions of the world and in need of a starting pitcher. Entering the new year, they had two rotation spots up in the air, with Chris Young, Chris Medlin, Dylan G, and, for some reason, Chin-Min Wong competing for those spots. They needed someone a little more dependable, and with the season inching closer, they needed someone sooner than later. They eventually turned to Ian Kennedy, signing him to a backloaded 5-year, $70 million contract. Now, Kennedy himself checked a lot of boxes. He was a durable pitcher that could give you 30-plus starts and around 200 innings, if not more. He had a 4th place finish in the Cy Young voting that included a 1st place vote, but that was 4 years prior. Since then, he barely looked like a middle-of-the-order pitcher. His 2014 season was better, but was only worth 1.5 WAR despite a respectable 3.63 ERA, 3.21 FIP, and 9.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. His 2015 season was worth negative 0.3 WAR, below replacement level. Thankfully for Kennedy, Scott Boras was his agent, and Boras knows how to maximize his client's value. Or Data Moore's just a sucker, I don't know. It's both! MLB trade rumors projected him to earn a contract around 4 years, $52 million, and even that seemed generous. This was the second biggest contract in Royals history, behind Alex Gordon's 4-year, $72 million extension earlier in the offseason. On one hand, it was good to see the Royals spending money, but was Ian Kennedy really worth that contract? The contract was severely backloaded to give the Royals more short-term flexibility while trying to win another World Series. It also had an opt-out after the second season, but with so much deferred money it seemed unlikely, especially considering Kennedy would be entering his age 33 season at that moment. The Royals also gave up the 24th overall pick in the 2016 draft to sign Kennedy, which was not ideal for a team that just traded a bunch of prospects, including 2 of their top 3 prospects, at the prior trade deadline for rentals. There was nothing wrong with Kennedy himself, but the circumstances surrounding the signing, especially the contract, seemed like a disaster waiting to happen. Despite all that, Kennedy had a solid 2016 season worth 4.3 WAR, his best since his 4th place Cy Young finish in 2011. Believe it or not, that led the team, including offense. He had a 3.68 ERA over 195 2/3 innings, but his 4.67 FIP and 33 home runs allowed told a different story, and suggested regression could be coming for Kennedy. In 2017, regression did come, and it hit hard. He gave up 1 more home run despite tossing 40 fewer innings, and regressed in just about every other category. His ERA ballooned to 5.38, and his FIP was even higher. With his opt-out looming, Kennedy decided to remain with the Royals, who were on the hook for the $49 million remaining on his contract. The Royals had no issue covering it. Most of the team's big stars were leaving in free agency, and they intentionally backloaded the contract for that exact reason. The best hope for Kennedy and the now rebuilding Royals was for a rebound. No one was taking that contract in a trade, and there's no point releasing a player that could still contribute. Unfortunately, that rebound did not happen. He only made 22 starts in 2018, the first time in his major league career he failed to reach 30 starts in a full season on the roster. This was due to a couple stints on the injured list after the All-Star break. His 4.66 ERA may seem like an improvement, but it does not tell the full story. Entering the break, he had a 5.13 ERA and was giving up 1.72 home runs every 9 innings, barely an improvement over his 2017 campaign. He only made 4 starts after the break due to an injury, but he had a 2.88 ERA over those games and only gave up 2 home runs in 25 innings. Luck may have finally broken Kennedy's favor, but the Royals had other ideas for 2019. During spring training, the Royals announced Kennedy would start the season in the bullpen with the plan of utilizing him exclusively as a reliever. This was a new experience for him. At the time, he had 2 career relief appearances under his name, both coming as a young prospect with the Yankees a decade earlier. Kennedy was up for the challenge. He admitted to the Kansas City Star's Lynn Worthy that while he felt he could still start, he was happy to do what was best for the team. Apparently best for the team meant losing a rotation spot to Heath Fillmyer, but then again, I'm just here creating YouTube videos. I don't get a say on the roster. Maybe this move was in the best interest of the team, but let me remind you of his contract. He had 2 years and $33 million remaining on his deal, split an even $16.5 million per year. Just to put that in perspective, old friend Wade Davis was entering the second year of a contract averaging $17.33 million per year. Aroldis Chapman, who, a couple years earlier, signed the biggest deal ever for a reliever at the time, was averaging $17.2 million per year. The next 2 relievers on that list, Kenley Jansen and Mark Melanson, were making $16 million and $15.5 million per year respectively. Kennedy would have to pitch like an ace reliever just to be worth his contract. The Royals have pulled it off before, not just Wade Davis but also Luke Hochevar, whom happened to be a close friend of Kennedy's. Hochevar's reemergence in the bullpen was a key for the 2015 team and would have made the 2014 bullpen even deeper if not for Tommy John surgery, which prevented him from pitching that season. I'm sure the Royals were optimistic about Kennedy's chances as a reliever, but he ended up exceeding those expectations. He was firmly in the closer role when July came around, and he was looking like the next successful Royals resurrection in the bullpen. His .360 ERA at the break may not shout elite, but he had a .231 FIP, was striking out 10.8 batters every 9 innings, and most importantly, he only gave up 2 home runs in 35 innings. His fastball velocity increased from 91-92 miles an hour to touching 95. Kennedy himself mentioned to MLB.com's Jeffrey Flanagan, "It's fun to be good at something again and contribute." The gamble was clearly paying off, and other teams were taking notice. With the trade deadline looming, the once-immovable asset was attracting interest from teams needing relief help, with some even viewing Kennedy as the closer for their own team. The trade market for relievers could not have been better for sellers. The only issue, of course, is the simple fact that Kennedy was still owed $16.5 million in 2020, not to mention his salary for the rest of 2019. Among the teams interested were the Atlanta Braves, but the Royals made it clear, at least publicly, that they were not willing to eat any money in a trade. Now, this could have easily been leveraged to help the Royals get a better deal, but the Royals were in a deep rebuild and could easily use the prospect help. To keep an elite reliever on this team was simply a waste. This was a common theme of the post-World Series Royals. Stars were kept around longer than they should have, with either the promise of contending or the size of the crowd used to justify keeping them. You could blame then general manager Dayton Moore, who constantly opted to keep stars in rebuilding teams. You could blame then owner David Glass, whose penny-pinching tendencies constantly held back the Royals on the field. Regardless, it made no sense to stand pat, and let me remind you that the Royals gave up a draft pick when they signed Kennedy. This could have been a chance to get that value back. The trade deadline came and went, with Kennedy remaining a Royal. The Royals traded 4 players away, but all were on expiring contracts or, in Terrence Gore's case, recently designated for assignments, and the returns were not exactly eye-catching. Tyrone Blanco would steal 31 bases for the 2024 Royals, but otherwise the returns were minimal. 2 weeks after the deadline, Kennedy's name would resurface, as apparently the Royals were close to trading him. Alex Duvall of Royals Farm Report mentioned the Royals had a deal with the Braves to send Kennedy to Atlanta, with young pitching prospect Joey Wentz heading back to Kansas City. The Braves were aggressively seeking relief help and searching for someone that could close out games for them. Reportedly, the reason for the trade falling through was David Glass, who shot it down due to the cash involved, which was unknown but expected to be quite a bit. The last update on the side was earlier this year, and their Twitter account is no longer active, so I understand any doubts on the source, but let me calm that. Randy Gisierli, who might be my favorite Royals personality and easily my favorite dermatologist, vouched for them, saying they are not known for blowing smoke. This would have been a perfectly fair return for the Royals, and it would have been a win considering Kennedy's value not too long earlier. What did the Royals almost get with Joey Wentz? Well, Wentz was the 40th overall pick in the 2016 draft, ironically the same one where the Royals gave up a pick to sign Kennedy. The Braves signed him over slot value to prevent him from going to college, and that high asking price likely kept him from getting selected earlier. Baseball America viewed him as the 26th best prospect in the draft. Considering the Royals gave up the 24th pick, you could argue that the Royals gave up a prospect similar to Wentz to sign Kennedy in the first place. He went to high school at Shawnee Mission East, about 22 minutes away from Kauffman Stadium, but don't let the local shine fool you. Wentz was a legit prospect. Fangraphs had him 84th overall the year before, and while most publications had him outside their top 100 that season, he was still gaining attention in a very deep Braves farm system. The Royals would have essentially been getting back the draft pick they gave up in the first place. There was zero downside to this move, and I wish David Glass did not let the money get in the way. Instead of being traded back home, Wentz would instead be traded to the Detroit Tigers, Kansas City's division rival, as the main prospect in a package for Shane Green, who was then Detroit's closer. Green, like Kennedy, was under club control for the 2020 season, but he did not have the financial baggage that Kennedy had. Wentz was viewed as a long-term rotation piece for Detroit, even after needing Tommy John surgery before the 2020 season. His major league debut came a couple years later. He was on and off the roster and only made 7 starts, primarily as a September call-up, but he looked like a future starter for Detroit. Unfortunately, his 2023 season was a massive struggle. He was worth negative 1.9 WAR over 105.2 innings, with a not-so-nice 6.90 ERA. With no minor league options remaining, he was moved to the bullpen for the 2024 season, where the poor performance continued. He was later designated for assignment, with the Pirates claiming him off waivers. He looked good in the Pirates bullpen, and time will tell if he can find a role for them in 2025. As for Ian Kennedy, he continued to pitch well for the Royals after the deadline with no signs of slowing down. He finished with a 3.41 ERA, 2.99 FIP, and 30 saves for a team that won only 59 games. His strikeout and walk rates remained great, and there was bound to be interest in him over the offseason even with the $16.5 million remaining on his contract. While there was interest, the Royals, as was typical during this time, had a very high asking price on all their stars, including Kennedy. He would remain with the team for the 2020 season, but he would not be the closer. New manager Mike Matheny opted to use Trevor Rosenthal as his closer, whom he was familiar with while he managed the St. Louis Cardinals. Kennedy was struggled during the pandemic-shortened season, giving up 7 home runs over 14 innings pitched, a home run every other inning. He did start a game for the first time in 2 years, however he served as an opener for a couple innings. This would be his final career start. He was placed on the injured list on August 31st with a left calf strain, which ended his season and his Royals career. For 2021, Kennedy signed a contract with the rebuilding Texas Rangers and later became their closer, arguably pitching better than he did in 2019. This time, he would get traded at the deadline to the Philadelphia Phillies, where he continued to close out games. He signed with the Arizona Diamondbacks for the 2022 season, the team where the bulk of his success took place, including his 4th place finish in the 2011 Cy Young voting. Regression took a hard turn, and while he pitched a full season out of the bullpen, he would not hold on to the closer role. He returned to the Rangers in 2023, and while he struggled with injuries during the season, he still earned a World Series ring. This would be the final chapter of his playing career, as Kennedy announced his retirement after the 2023 season. I can think of several reasons to ask what if regarding Kennedy not getting traded. What would have happened to Joey Wentz if he came to Kansas City? Would his career path look any different? Would the Tigers trade Shane Green elsewhere, and would the prospect haul in that trade haunt the Royals more than just missing out on wins? Most importantly, did David Glass block any other trades during the post-World Series rebuild for similar reasons? I mean, it's no secret the team's salary was always cut tight. Thankfully for the Royals, new ownership led by John Sherman and new general manager JJ Piccolo have shown a willingness to spend money in hopes of improving the team. It's a big reversal from the David Glass and Data Moore days, with the Kennedy situation just an iceberg in a bigger ocean of problems. To wrap this up on a positive note, I want to congratulate Ian Kennedy on a successful career and wish him the best of luck in the next chapter of his life. Going out with a ring, hard to find a better way to go out. Enjoy this? Feel free to like and subscribe. Also check out my prior videos. My first video, and the one that kicked off this channel, happened to also involve a trade that never happened. The Royals almost getting Melky Cabrera back in 2006, Dayton Moore's first trade deadline in Kansas City. Could have really set the stage for Dayton's first year in town. I won't share any further details, just watch and see for yourself. I'm also now on Blue Sky. With how quickly the platform has been growing, I figured I may as well start up an account just in case it truly takes off. Don't expect me to be too active for now, but it's there if you want to follow along. Until next time.
Oh my. Cheese at the knees. Joe, you got to go. Wow. Look at that. 3/4